everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka and we are back with another Twitter thread. Today we are talking about something a little more algorithmically friendly than the in-the-weeds nonsense that you've all been putting up with for the past several weeks. We're going to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Being too difficult, and everyone in the comments please go, oh no, Yu-Gi-Oh! So hard, and then we'll make a bunch of reaction videos to those comments. Those people can make reaction videos to our comments. You know how this works. Anyway, today I want to talk about some of Yu-Gi-Oh!'s very specific intricacies. So when coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! From a different card game, it can be very difficult to permeate the weirdness. For instance, I had a really hard time when I first started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Grasping the concept of chains. So in Magic the Gathering, they have something called the stack. And the way the stack resolves is that each individual action is put on the stack, then resolved in reverse order, the same way that chains are in Yu-Gi-Oh! However, after each link in the chain is finished resolving, you have the ability to add things to the chain once more. You can respond to things further down on the chain. It's basically like chains, but none of the nonsensical bullshit that is chain blocking. Let's see what you all came up with. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the #1 place to go if you need a pack simulator, a card database, or want to read a wealth of strategy articles. They also post breakdowns and lists from every major TCG and Master Duel tournament, including the Master Circuit series. Give them a look at www.YGO.com. For me, it was learning to evaluate cards. Coming from Pokemon, it was easier for me to evaluate what a good card is from basic things like HP, damage, ease of attaching energies, and effect. In Yu-Gi-Oh! It varies. Well, you've posted probably the worst card to make your point, because Ultra Ball is just Rhoda for Pokemon cards. Evaluating cards in Pokemon in a vacuum, coming from a Yu-Gi-Oh! Perspective, was really easy. A card that says add a card from your deck to your hand is really good. It says discard 2 and draw 18 cards a turn in this game. I'm sorry, but the rule that extra deck monsters that weren't summoned properly can't be brought back sounds so much like a made-up rule. I've had people think I was cheating them when I had to explain it. Yeah, it is ridiculous. And ridiculous coming from someplace like Magic as well, where Reanimator is a really popular strategy. Oh yeah, I'm gonna bin a powerful monster that says it can't be normal summoned or set. And then I'll go to Reborn it, and they'll go, whoa, 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 whoa. You didn't normal summon or set it. And I said, yeah, that's the entire point. And they say, well, wow, this is a pretty good one. Face down defense position is a mess all around. You might be hearing that and thinking, what? It's super explanatory, but pretty much every piece of information about the card just vanishes into thin air. What about the counters on the card? What about equipped spells and monsters? It can be used as a fusion material, but not as a synchro material. Does the monster keep extra effects from a specific summoning condition? Does the monster remember what materials it was made with? Does the monster remember how it was summoned? Does it remember whose it is? What happens if the monster was summoned temporarily? Will it leave the field? Does it still know what she felt like? Jesse J says, I kind of want to say everything to do with pendulums. So many strange rulings. Like, what do you mean the monster effect of plush fire triggers if it's destroyed while it's in the pendulum zone? I feel like we beat this one to death every single episode, but pendulums just don't work right. No, you don't understand. When they're destroyed while in the pendulum zone, they're destroyed as spells, but their monster effect triggers and it counts as a monster being destroyed. Oh, cool. So they're monsters, depending on the zone that they're located in, but the zone in which they're being destroyed, they are not monsters. They're spell cards. Oh, so there's spell cards in the hand too? Sort of. A trend I've noticed every time I've seen one of those card game players react to Yu-Gi-Oh! For the first time is that the first thing they look at while judging a monster is attack value, despite the fact that stats are only really important as like meta-dependent information. It is always funny when people like read Baron de Fleur and they're like, oh, this monster has 3,000 points, which means it's about as powerful as the Blue Eyes White Dragon. I gotta say, for all those videos I did where it was like Yu-Gi-Oh! Player tries to determine if Vanguard cards are good, the #1 thing that gave me an edge over Magic the Gathering players was I immediately discounted the number in the corner. I was like, 8,000. That seems irrelevant. Let's read the effect text. Learning that Blue Eyes isn't a good deck, unlike in Pokemon where Charizard has always been good. Thanks, Dyer. Whatever you call these effects where cards see into the future, Dustin 100% correct. This is, for my money, probably the hardest thing to explain to new people. A card like Goes in Match in a deck that theoretically could play around it, and you have to have a sit down with your opponent and speak to them about the birds, the bees, and the ability for continuous trap cards to see the future. Callie says, getting my head around cost versus effect and how those are templated on cards. I had a hell of a time understanding why Super Poly couldn't trigger Shaddoll graveyard effects. Discarding is printed on the card, so it's part of the effect, right? Even worse with pre-problem solving card text cards. So Callie's absolutely correct. Costs versus effects are only now getting the problem-solving card text they deserved. But Callie has also outed herself as a zoomer here. The first archetype to really confound this principle was Dark World, which, when released in 2005 and 2006, really threw a wrench into the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! Did not have anything approaching PSCT. Like, imagine printing a card as strong as Silva or Gold, and then just asking players to guess if what they were discarding for was a cost or effect for 6 years! Mine was understanding how Gemini monsters work. Okay, well, thankfully you don't have to know this. Conjunctions! Absolutely correct.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
The conjunctives and if you do also and then have specific meanings. Okay, in the defense of Yu-Gi-Oh! That is true in English as well. But it is funny to be like, okay, some of these say A has to happen and then B happens. Some say neither has to happen. Some say both have to happen. And they're also divided by sequentially and simultaneously as to when they trigger. Vanguard guy that played Yu-Gi-Oh! Casually for years, but I got into competitive from the start of the Link era to the end of TOS format. By far the most confusing thing to get used to was spell speed. Legit had to have people at locals sit down and lecture me. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Spell speed is awful. Like, it should not be in the game at all. When a monster hits the field, this came up a lot in late 2020 format where your Dino opponent would negate the summon of a Link monster, and because that Link monster is technically not on the field yet, you could chain Gamma. I'm learning this today. First, both monsters are on the field. Then both monsters are not on the field, and a third monster is in a nebulous state of not on the field but attempting to resolve. At that point, if your opponent activates a non-spell speed 3 way to prevent that summon from being successful, you can Gamma. It's in the material zone. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Negating activations, negating effects, activation of a card, and activation of an effect were brutal for me as a youngin' coming from Pokemon trading card game. What do you mean I can't Magic Jam or your Game Shot Wave Motion? It's a magic card. You're activating. I'm jamming. Legitimately true. Also, this person is whining about Wave Motion Cannon and is literally named Wave Motion Ganon. Did it make that much of an impact on you? Summoning / lingering restrictions. This is a good one. Almost any card worth playing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Applies some sort of long-lasting restriction to your turn. And learning how to manage those without taking notes can be a little iffy. Yu-Gi-Oh!'s new player experience is certainly nothing to write home about. But sometimes it seems as if the player experience for players who are already integrated into card games is even worse. What can I say? We're just so unique and quirky. Scarlon says, I actually can't recall that much that I struggled a lot with in the game, but I do remember struggling so much with cards that have text that just lies to you. Necro Valley doesn't say this anymore. The new print of the card is completely different and does clarify a little more effectively what it does. Oh, I was talking about current text? All right, Dyer, axe this entire one. She had her shot.